Hi everyone, my name's Emily Lazar. I'm a psychologist and I work in the Counseling and Psychological Services Center at App State. I'm reaching out to y'all via video. We are hoping to share some coping skills with students during this time where we're really missing seeing you all in person. And today I'm going to be talking about using creative writing and journaling as a way of promoting your mental health and self-care. This is something I'm passionate about because before I chose psychology as a career, I was studying creative writing, and it's something that I still like to use in my personal life and in my work with students. So there's a couple different types of creative writing. There's a lot listed here and probably more that I haven't thought of. So I'd encourage you not to get too hung up on trying to fit into one category. If there are certain types that fit your style more than others, or maybe some that feel too intimidating or academic to kind of be promoting your mental health right now, you can feel free to choose what works best for you. And there are a lot of benefits mental health wise to creative writing, with just a few listed here. One way that people might use it is for emotion regulation. So just being able to distill down into words what they're experiencing and to have an outlet. It can be a good way of helping you build communication skills if we're practicing putting what we're thinking and feeling into words that might help us say it out loud to another person later. Or sometimes people find that when they write, they're able to be more honest or more descriptive, and they might send communications in the form of a letter to somebody in that way, or just when it's really too hard to speak that in the moment. It can be a way of building mindfulness and insight, which are two different skills or factors that help our mental health. Mindfulness can help us pay attention to what's going on around us, especially through a non-judgmental lens. And insight is a way of helping us learn more about ourselves. A lot of times when people write, they might get more clarity, or they might see things from a different view, or realize, oh yeah, I really am feeling or thinking like that, when they didn't quite realize that before. It can be a way of creating more empowering narratives or helpful thought patterns if we're maybe realizing that we're stuck in a rut of looking at maybe a painful past situation or interpersonal event in one way, or if we're maybe feeling like we are really talking down on ourselves and being self-deprecating and want to break out of that pattern. Writing can kind of help train our brains to think differently about those things. It can be a way of connecting with a community if you share something that you've written, or maybe find some common ground with another person in terms of topics or genres that you like. It can also be a way to build self-efficacy and self-esteem. Sometimes when people write, they walk away feeling like they've accomplished something. So these are just some strategies and options for using creative writing, and hopefully these will help prompt and inspire you some. So one really simple but effective way is to just start by naming what you're feeling. An emotion wheel is a great tool for this, especially if you are feeling a lot of things at once and it feels kind of complex, or you know that you're feeling something but you're really not sure what that is, or struggling to find a word for it. This can be used in a couple different ways. So before people sit down and start writing what they're feeling, if they need kind of this visual aid to guide them, they might start in the middle with these 6 basic human emotions that we all typically experience at some point in our lives. Sometimes people might be more readily able to identify these, and then they might work outward, out into these other rings or slices of the pie to identify more specific ways of naming what they're feeling. They might be able to kind of understand maybe where this emotion started, or where it's coming from, or what their relationship with this emotion has been historically in their life. Other folks might be more in tune with these more specific ones on the outer edges, and then they might work their way in to maybe see if there's some layers to this emotion, or maybe something else going on underneath. Mindfulness, I was talking about earlier, this is a way of paying attention that is present moment focused, that's not judgmental, so not jumping to conclusions or evaluations right away. And it is really the opposite of being on autopilot. So if you think of like a really good piece of creative writing that you've read, it's something that maybe has a lot of detail or uses sensory language to really evoke a feeling or make you feel like you're there. So when people are using mindfulness in their writing, it can be done by observing and then describing. So the way of taking in information and translating it into words. One way you can do this is by maybe finding an object in your home that's meaningful to you or has a positive connotation or memories, and then observing what you can see about it, what you can hear about it. Maybe there's colors, textures, shapes. Maybe it feels a particular way when you touch it. Maybe there's a taste or a smell even. So trying to be able to put into words, to evoke this thing in words is a way of observing and describing. You might also look at a scene out your window, or you might go to something more complex, like trying to observe and describe a feeling in your body or a pattern of thought that's happening to you, or maybe a situation that's happening externally with another person. So observing and describing can again be a way to translate your experiences into words and provide that outlet. I also included this quote from Kurt Vonnegut that I really like because I think that practicing mindfulness also helps us savor moments that we're going through. I think it's pretty common for us to always want to be problem solving or looking for something to improve. So sometimes we don't slow down enough to really appreciate or value what's going on right now in this moment. So we might miss out on what we have to be grateful for, or really enjoying the good instead of worrying about when the good's going to end, or always looking ahead to the future and the next thing. Life storytelling. So this is a method of writing that is true to your own life, so nonfiction, or maybe a blending of nonfiction and fiction. With this one, it's useful for folks to write about things that have happened to them, because it might be a way of reclaiming a story that they maybe feel has been taken away from them or defined by another person. It might be a way of making new meaning after they've gotten some distance from an experience that's happened to them. And again, might be a way of bringing in that more empowering self-talk. So folks might write about just one experience they've had, or they might write something longer that kind of spans their whole life. They might break things down into chapters. They might think about, if my life were a book, who would the characters be and what role would I take? They might write it from a third person perspective, so they might feel more objective or more likely to maybe admit things about themselves or be less judgmental of themselves. They might write from kind of the point of view of a letter, trying to communicate something to somebody else that maybe they don't have the opportunity to talk to right now. So there are a lot of ways that writing your own narrative can kind of put you back in the driver's seat and craft new meaning out of things that have happened to you. Really closely connected with that is working with perspective and voice. So as a writer, you have the power to kind of shift what perspective this work is being told from, and the quality of the voice and the kind of unique characteristics of that. So some ways that people might use this as a mental health promoting exercise is they might write about themselves, but from the perspective of a compassionate friend, someone who is validating of them, which might be hard to do if we're just trying to be kind to ourselves right away. We might have to think about how would we respond kindly to somebody else, or how might they respond kindly to us. Another way that you can do this is you can maybe write down some typical ways that you talk to yourself, and you might notice seeing that on paper, like, wow, that's really harsh. And that might be kind of a catalyst to then start another writing exercise where you rewrite that from the perspective of a more compassionate or encouraging or effective inner voice, so that that inner dialogue with yourself is more reflective of what you value and is ultimately going to be more helpful to you. So in writing, you can kind of let those internal conflicts be embodied and kind of discuss back and forth and experience some change. And then finally, community. So some of us might be a little intimidated by the idea of sharing what we've written with others, and if that's the case, totally okay. It's not an obligation, but I think it can be powerful to share something that you've written with another person, whether that you're seeking to kind of refine it over time and you want some constructive feedback, or you might just find it helpful to hear from another person about how your words impacted them or what things that they can relate to from it. Or they might want to ask you questions about it that lead to a meaningful discussion where you feel seen and heard. It's also a space for collaboration, for building friendships with people and working toward a common goal. I know I've really enjoyed being able to write stories or poems jointly with another person, kind of back and forth in the past. Speaking to that, there are a lot of apps and virtual communities that connect people who are interested in reading or creative writing. So I'd encourage you to check those out, especially at this time where you might feel kind of distant from other people, whether it is joining a book club or having a writer's group, or even just having an app that kind of prompts you each day to write about something and to give you ideas and inspiration for where to start. If you are kind of more interested in reading what other people have written more than writing yourself, there are a lot of literary publications that are great places to start, and you can also submit to them if you are so inclined. So the Peel is App State's literary magazine. The Perch is run through Yale, and that is a publication, a literary magazine that has a mental health lens on everything that's written for it. I really like this one that I'll show you. This is a project called the Pandemic Project, and it has expressive writing prompts that kind of help people think through how all the changes in our world right now are impacting them, just because it is so intense and so ever-changing. We might not be able to fully process moment to moment how this is impacting us. So writing prompts, sometimes it can feel painful or hard, but it might allow us to have something to look back on, to learn from, and it might help us feel like we're able to break down the things we're dealing with, so maybe we can find steps to cope with them or feel like we have a little more control. And then finally, the Counseling Center services. If you are interested in learning about other ways to promote your mental health, or just other ways that we as an office and as professionals can help you, you can visit our website, counseling.appstate.edu, and you can get updates about our services by reading there. If you're interested in checking out any of the links from this further, you'll find them in the description for this video. Thank you all so much for being with me today, and I hope you continue to take care of yourselves. Thanks.